The analogy I would give you is diagnosing medical issues, right? Like you can't ask the AI. It doesn't have a medical degree.
Getting a very good-looking, average nonsense is not really actionable, because game user research for most of the games are those small nuances.
The only thing moving faster than the AI development cycle is the AI hype cycle. But where does that leave games research? In this episode, we're asking whether humans stay in the loop, whether cheaper and faster research actually produces better decisions, and whether AI takes us towards Frank Herbert's Dune or Ian M. Banks' culture. I'm David Hartery, and this is Press X for Insights. Joining me are Dr. John Hopson and Bogdan Baranovskiy. Enjoy. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly get like a background from you guys. Maybe you could start with you, John. You could talk a little bit about your history and then also like how you got into games user research in the first place.
Sure. So I was originally an experimental psychologist, doing rats and pigeons and all that sort of thing, and making games for fun, and ended up seeing a lot of parallels between my psych work and my games hobby, and ended up joining Microsoft's very early games user research team, and got to work on Halo, Age of Empires. I subsequently went on to work at Bungie and Blizzard, founding their user research teams, and just before I joined Emhance, I was at Epic, working on Fortnite and all of their games.
I basically started my journey several years after John did, but the flow is more or less, I would say, the same. So I've also started as a psychologist. I was actually working with autism disorder for the first several years in the university, and then I figured out that there is actually a whole space of game user research, and games was something that I always loved. So I kind of shifted, got into wargaming, so my experience falls also in like multiplayer games a lot, also those vehicle games as we used to call that. And the team I got into was very mature already. Like, I believe it was one of the best laboratories in that area at that time. And I just met a bunch of very good people who teach me and made me who I am at the moment.
And then I guess the topic then today is that things are changing kind of, I guess we can discuss whether rapidly or not rapidly, but I guess everyone's job has become a touchstone for AI now. And I guess we're going to talk a little bit about how AI is impacting games user research. I guess the first question is, has AI actually earned its place in games user research yet?
From my side, yes, it's earned this place, but that place is more in doing tasks rather than doing, actual research. And it kind of helped to save time on some of the processes, at least from what I'm able to see, on like preparation, on trying to get more data quicker, on coding, but I don't see it actually like changing the general unit of work or providing something extremely new. So for me, at the moment, it's a definitely useful tool, but more of a faster horse than a car.
I mean, it is certainly being used. Like every research team is using it a little bit, just the same way any team in tech is using some AI. I don't think, at least on the projects I've worked on, we haven't quite had the kind of crisis that would force us to like really commit to do this kind of studies that we could only do using AI. And so it's been like, okay, it's a little help. We'll use to analyze some survey answers. We'll use it to help clean up the data or do some visualizations. But I don't think the industry as a whole has sort of really said like, oh, we have to do this new thing and we can only get it done if we fully leverage the new tool.
Sure. When do you think that, because I think people have described it as like almost onboarding a new hire, and you train it and improves its kind of general level of output. But it's more kind of like, I think, like a junior employee, would you say?
Think of it like the early days of automobiles where you had to be basically your own mechanic to be able to own a car. So if you're going to make it really part of your process and use it every day, you're going to have to know a ton of additional information and change a lot of things to make it work. But if you're going to if you want to be sort of a casual consumer user, it's not quite there yet. The people I've seen who've had the most success are the ones who've really committed and have built their own Claude skills or whatever, or have built their own sort of structures and have really built a workflow that's designed around the new tool. We are in a comfortable place with user research, right? This profession works. It does produce value for games. the traditional methods do produce helpful insights and whatnot, and therefore we haven't quite had that impetus to sort of be like, okay, we got to go for it.
And here, actually, if you don't mind me follow up on the crisis idea in general, I would say that's something where we're in the middle of it, from my point of view at least. So for me, that crisis is like every company is trying to make their products to decrease the costs of making those products, right? And also to be able to produce them faster. So, John, if you don't mind me asking, like, what do you think about it? Is that the crisis we need to prepare for, or just, make a leap of
Actually,
jump of
I
faith?
think crisis may be too judgmental a word. We need, because user research is always downstream of the rest of game development, right? The designers decide to build something crazy, and we have to figure out how to test it. The producers figure out a ship schedule, we figure out how to deliver results in time to make the decisions at the key gates and whatever. And so I think as the rest of the industry changes how they do things, it's going to force us to also adapt and to force us to, somebody's going to say, hey, we want to build this game. And we're going to be like, okay, there's no way to do that with our current methods. And we're going to have to do something new. It's why I've stayed in it this long, is that every year the designers come up with something weird and crazy, and we have to figure out how to deal with it. And I can stay in the same job and have the questions and the tasks change underneath me and get my novelty that way.
Sure. And in terms of like this kind of impetus, do you think that is definitely like there's going to come up a point where it's like we have to start changing our workflows, or do you think that there's going to, I guess from a self-serving point of view, something could come along, like what would like a genuinely useful AI look like that people would be willing to adopt kind of preemptively before we get to this kind of tipping point?
From my side, like, there is a short answer to that probably everyone uses, like cheap, fast, and more, right? I would not probably choose this straightforward path. I would say, AI is quite good in combining things together, and it's definitely more capable to see more than a regular human can. And as we are working in the game sphere, where actually, and that's my dream as a UX researcher, to be able to, use all possible data, not just from the single research, being able to use the outcomes of telemetry, being able to use the outcomes of previous studies, of feedback from real players, from stores and whatever you can get online, to maybe even some events, and kind of groom it all together and take it all together and see a general picture. That, I believe, what a useful game user research AI would be for me. Because then you can take a closer look on some specific points, and game user research for me is something that lives on those nuances and lives on those small moments. Because the game that is able to run the test is the game that usually is live already. So most obvious points are already solved. And to improve further and to have a higher budget and revenue and so on, you need to see those small details and adjust them.
Yeah. I would also toss in, AI is useful to the degree that it allows me to say yes to every study, right? Like I want to be able to say, when people come to us with a problem, I want to be able to say, yes, we can help you with that. And so being able to run studies faster, cheaper, easier lets me do that. Being able to run studies at scales I couldn't do before lets me do that. Like anything that lets me say, yeah, no, we can make that happen, and we can make it happen in time for you to hit your milestones and make the calls you need to do with confidence and speed.
In terms of what's currently out there, what kind of space is there within the games user research field for new tools?
I think the gap actually is in sort of the white space around the studies we're currently running. It's the stuff that we haven't been able to do. It's the stuff that we've had to make compromises on over the years, like sample size. We can only run so many people per researcher per day, whatever. And a lot of those compromises and sort of assumptions have just gotten baked in. And so the idea like we can open up the possibilities of studies we can run a lot more. We can say like, oh, sure, I can run 1,000 people because I have my clever AI assistant that's going to help moderate those studies. I can ask survey questions in a different way because I'm going to analyze them using an LLM that can pick out answers from different kinds of questions than I would have to ask, right? Like right now we write survey questions because we're assuming a human being is going to read all those answers and try to assemble them into an aggregate sort of picture of the user experience. An LLM could do that very differently.
And I actually had a bunch of previous clients already, even working back in wargaming, who would be very happy of the idea to run a UX test on 1,000 participants and be able to analyze those results. If that's quick and cheap and easy.
And we all know the sample sizes and everything. It's not like 1,000 people aren't going to be more like if a problem's a real problem and it's worth interrupting your dev schedule to fix, it'll show up in 10 people, right? Like if you need 1,000 people to find the problem, it's a very small problem. But at the same time, there are things that require larger samples. There are things that require different kinds of analysis.
I was always on the side of, results should lead to something, and results kind of need to convince someone that there is a problem. John, you may disagree with it, probably. But for me, what AI is able to open up in that is actually be able to convince more people. Because someone will accept text, someone will accept a graph, someone knows how, I don't know, connect dots together or just observe the video. And in my practice, at least, what I saw in different companies and different teams is we usually tend to go with a single template to how we ship the results, at least from what I saw. And AI is beneficial here because then you can very quickly change the template. You can very quickly ship a graph to this client and show a visual of how those players really struggled on the level with this one, and so on. So for me, it's like versatility in what we can provide and how we can convince others that there's actually a problem.
That's a really good point.
And do you think that AI is going to change who is doing research? Like at the moment we have specialized games user researchers, but do you think that there might be at smaller studios someone who's mostly relying on an AI but is not a specialist, and then that is there going to be smaller teams in larger companies, or do you think it's basically fundamentally there needs to be a person who's an expert running humans through the game and understanding the results?
I will actually be very, tense on that one. I don't think AI is changing anything in here that provide real results. We already had those companies, and one is a very huge one where actually studies are run not by actual researchers, but by kind of game designers and product people and so on. So I don't think AI is changing that. On the other hand, when we are talking about replacing, I would say researcher here, but what I mean is human in the loop probably, or replacing the participant. I'm very hard in that. I don't believe that will work, and the part of it is what I already mentioned. Then we are getting a very good-looking average nonsense that is not really actionable, because game user research for most of the games are those small nuances and corner cases, and those participants who actually struggle with something because of some, I don't know, motivation or setup and so on. And just averaging everything out, I don't believe that it will provide anything valuable.
I would agree. And the other thing I'll say is, maybe this is self-serving, but user research is a hard job. Like there's a reason we hire PhDs and people with master's degrees and people with years of experience to do this. And just as like, the analogy I would give you is diagnosing medical issues, right? Like you can't ask the AI. It doesn't have a medical degree, and you should probably check with a real doctor before you do anything crazy. So I think it does enable people who are not experts to run better studies. But I think when it gets really tricky or really important, you should talk to an expert the same way you would for anything else.
And I would say it does not mean that AI cannot, save your life in very harsh medical conditions. It can, like we've seen those cases, but those are just one of many, 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 many examples. And those many, many is what matters.
And the situation that sort of terrifies me is people who think the AI can be a substitute for running any research at all. They're like, okay, we don't have to check what our players think. We can just ask the AI what our players think. And the AI can't actually play the game. Like if the AI is helping you run your own study, great. If it's helping you skip running studies at all, I think that is the road to hell.
And to be honest with you, I once actually, on the very early years of AI, tried to ask expect that you are a first-time player of a specific game, and what do you feel? How is your day 1, day 7 looks like? And it was genuinely right about those issues and struggles. The issue was we were all aware about those issues and struggles. Like it did not bring anything new. At the same time, sometimes it's convincing, like going from psychological sphere as well. Like sometimes you hear that, oh, I've talked with ChatGPT and it solved all of my troubles, and you are just like, come on, we've been working on that for a year, right? Till you achieve that insight.
And also, like we've all seen stories about sort of AI psychosis, etc. Like you can talk your AI into a lot of strange things and vice versa. So please keep other humans in the loop.
Sure. Yeah, because I'm actually, and I think the point you made about the radiographers, radiologists, is like a good point, because I think there's an infamous quote from, I think it was an analyst called Jeffrey Hinton. He said we should stop training radiologists back in 2016, because he's like, at that point there was already tools that could read radiography scans as well as a human could. But the issue is that the radiographer job is not reading scans. It's deciding what you do with the result of those scans. It's coming up with the treatment protocol. It's making sure that you monitor the person and all the rest of it. And I think, I think we've had this conversation a few times. I'm quite bullish on where games user research goes, because I think that once you give everyone the ability to do scans, that doesn't remove the research part. Like I think decoupling the running studies from games user research is maybe a healthy thing for you guys, because I think you said as well, a lot of your time is doing the admin of games user research, and then if you were freed up to do less of the admin of game user research, do you think that then you get more time, the brain work, I think, is what becomes more valued?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, just let us do the parts that are the good, selfishly, the good part of the job is the thinking about the data, what does this mean and what can we really change to fix this problem? I think that would be lovely. I am occasionally nostalgic for spending time in the actual lab with players, and I think there is something healthy about that hands-on, directly watching someone play. But that can be a smaller portion of the job.
Yeah, I would totally agree here. Being able to run 500, studies, 500 UX tests in a month may mean that you will have that amount of reports just waiting on someone's deck, and no one will read it, no one will make actions over it.
And that's a huge thing, actually. It's if it gets easier to produce research, are people going to end up just drowning in half-assed AI-generated studies? Are these going to, just because we can produce material faster doesn't mean our clients can absorb it faster. So finding ways to, how do we do more research without overloading the people who actually have to act on it is going to be an interesting challenge.
And honestly, it can be a shift in user research and like what we are doing. Maybe we are not, as David mentioned, reading graphs anymore. Maybe we are helping actually with those decisions, and even I hope in my dream world, doing some actual research. Not just running the same study over and over with different games.
Yeah, there's almost sort of like a Maslow's sort of hierarchy of needs, right? There's the baseline study of just like, okay, let's keep putting this in lab and testing for difficulty and usability. There's a little higher is like, okay, are we going the right direction? And even higher, like, are we making the right game at all? And can we sort of help people? Can we automate sort of the lower levels and focus on the higher levels?
For sure, and because as well, like I do think as well with how much AI slop is being generated on every level. So like you've got, like I don't know that there's so much games user research being done that people are getting inundated by slop research, but there's slop marketing material, there's slop games increasingly. And I think what people are forgetting is that fundamentally AIs are not economic entities, and you can't sell a game to an AI. So you have to, at a certain point, make something that's in some way pleasing to the human brain, and then that's I think why I feel like it's just there has to be a human in the loop at least at some level, because ultimately there has to be a human in the loop to open a wallet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like what's the kind of trust factor of AI? Like what's the point at which you'd feel like, okay, this is now done well enough that I can include this in a workflow going forward?
Including workflow without supervision is, I think, where it starts to go wrong. So as long as there's like a human involved at each step, doing a little bit of verification of like, yep, okay, yep, that makes sense, we're not going off the rails, I think is really important, because otherwise you're doing AI analysis, AI writing on an AI analysis on AI data collection, and garbage in, garbage out, right? At every step of that process.
And I would say there should be some, flags or markers if you are starting to do that, ideally. That's also some, UX enthusiasts are up to. Like, if you are able to ask AI to sum up a doc and it goes with conclusions, and you ask, okay, let's flip it out, and it's able to actually flip it out completely and provide a generally opposite sum up, it means that something is very, very wrong. And for me, the line here lies in, do you have time to fix it? Then you can use AI and you can try new tools that are not validated. If you are not able to do that, then probably something should still stay human. And maybe you will be able to do that even faster than AI. Like, it's a tool, it's not the replacement for your work.
In terms of like the adoption of AI, I know we talked about kind of like that there needs to be some kind of instigating event or crisis, but to what extent do you think that it's up to games user researchers to decide how much AI adoption they are comfortable with?
I would say we are mid, as I mentioned earlier, right? For me, we are mid-crisis already. We have those teams who are asking AI about what users feel. We have teams that provide materials that we want to test in much faster and like bigger pace that we are used to. And we even had those situations where we were not limited, from my point of view, only in do we use AI or not, but also being limited in using AI. And that's come from different directions, like being able to share private materials or not. Or I just love this example with Fable 5 that happened last month, when actually the whole updated version got banned in US and the whole world was not able to use it for a couple of weeks. Which for me led to two main worries around AI that I have and share. First one is getting close to Dune, when machines were banned, right, in general. And second one is more about Hyperion. Another great novel that I love is when machines end up running secretly, the humans and general direction of the society.
let's aim for the culture. If we're doing sci-fi far futures, let's aim for Banks's world. Um, I think so. Is in some cases not up to us. Like we are not the ones developing the LLM models. Like the we're not the ones doing that fundamental research at the frontier. So what tools come available to us is not always up to us. And similarly, the the top down demands from the studio and bottom up demands from the design teams are not up to us. However, adoption of AI has varied a lot across this profession. Like some teams are barely touching it, some teams are diving in, uh, just like saying like, if I can't do my entire job from the Claude command line interface, I'm doing it wrong. And like some people are going full bore, and so there is a fair amount of choice in how much we adopt it.
Then, kind of as a closing thought, what would you think is your advice to games user researchers that are maybe intimidated or unsure about how much AI they should be using?
I don't think it's a single decision. I think that the main advice I'd give is that it needs to be an ongoing process of constantly being like, okay, I haven't tried it in 6 months. Let's see what the latest models do. I haven't, or even I've been doing this. I fully automated my job 6 months ago. Is this still doing what I think it's doing? And have my outcomes really changed in the way I think they have? So I think the main advice I'd give is that like this is going to have to be that you're gonna have to keep engaging with it. You can never fire and forget in either direction. Make the choice and be done in either direction.
I would say until we're in a Dune world, yeah, we will need to interact with AI. We will need to adapt and to learn how it can be used in the work. And here I totally agree with John. Like, generally, all AI tools that I was using 6 months ago are not the tools that I'm using now. Like, some of them got shifted, some of other tools improved a lot, and now serves the purpose. So for me, it's about the demand, and like if it helps you to do what you want to do and complete those tasks faster, and maybe even leave some time for you to dive deeper into some other topics, why not?
And then I'll leave you with one softball question. What is the moment when you've been using the Emhance tool where you've thought, cool, this is a really helpful thing they've built here?
The one for me was when I felt like we were picking up this pattern of like engagement, disengagement, engagement, disengagement. That was like this little like rhythmic pattern. I was like, oh, I think we may have detected flow. Like that was the moment where I was like, oh crap, like we're doing something that I couldn't have picked up with any other method.
And for me, this moment was generally being able to say what engage people or not, because it can be just my past companies, but my user research was almost always around usability issues and good design, bad design, and so on. And I was literally lacking of those tools that will help me to say, is the game fun or not? Like, is it a good game, not in terms of the menu, but in terms of the gameplay? And that is what really got me hooked with it.